Well, we just try to, while we were looking at the lions earlier on, we tried to see if we could find out exactly what they might have caught this morning. And it was pretty hard to say what it was. We could see the grass was stained with blood, and we tried to look around and see if there was anything. But I think it might have been something very small, either like a young kudu or maybe even an impala, because there's not much left. And I don't even think all the lions might have had something to nibble on. But just where they are found this morning is pretty far from where they were seen yesterday. And I think during the evening they were looking for an opportunity to hunt. And eventually they came and they laid down to rest, and then that opportunity came. And you can imagine with lions, they have to be opportunistic because they never know when their next meal, or they're not guaranteed of a next meal. So they'll use every opportunity they can in order to hunt. But right in front of us, this young white male that's laying in the road. I just had a look earlier on at the eyes, and as soon as he starts looking back towards us, I would really love to point out the colors of those eyes. But earlier on, Caleb, you had a question if we could possibly smell the carcass, and yes, we can. You can just smell this very distinct, like grassy smell, so probably from the stomach content. And the wind is blowing from where they killed it towards us. So I'm assuming that even whatever this prey was, either the young kudu or an impala, didn't know that the lions were here because the wind was blowing from it towards the lions. So the lions probably knew that it was here. So earlier on, this young male was the one that was carrying that leg, and it looks to me one of the others in the tall grass. Can't really see the other one chewing that bone, but it's now chewing that piece of bone that this white one took across. So I wonder if it's not one of the other siblings that probably just took it off. And as we said with lions, there's no table manners, so every lion for themselves. But afterwards, you'll see once they finish feeding, they'll come back, they'll start licking each other again, grooming each other, help to clean the blood off their face, and just re-establishing that social bond. Stefan, you were asking a question about the lions, if they are albinos or what type of lion they are. So within this pride or within this area, there's the recessive white gene. So it's not like albinism, but it's more leucistic than anything else. But so both the parents have to carry the recessive white gene, and only once both of them carry it, it's 1 in every 4 that the chances are that there could be white lions. So it has, and so because it's not a dominant gene, and it's very rare to find that, according to my knowledge from big open areas and natural occurring lion prides within that area, there's only 3 white lions in the wild that I know of, and we are basically looking at 2 of them. So it's really, really special to see. And I'm also glad that they were able to make a kill this morning, because often if you see them moving, because with particularly this pride as well, they are very good hunters, but they'll probably be only successful every 3rd, maybe 4th day. All depends. They might have 2 kills in 2 days, but sometimes they can go 4 or 5 days without making a kill. You see that male just picked up his head now, just scanning around. The other young male is here as well, and I wonder if he's not looking out for that young male, because he doesn't tolerate him too much. As soon as he moves closer to the pride, he'll chase him away, because you can imagine it's not his offspring, so he doesn't really want them to be with the pride, because the more lions with this pride as well, the more chances of everyone having less to eat. So if he can, he'll try and push them away. But how beautiful is that face? I mean, look at his mane. If you notice the different colorizations, and start with that like light brown, almost dark in the middle, and a bit of blonde on the side. And then, of course, if you follow his head down, quite a lot of patches of white, especially around his nose and under his eyes. All you can see is with You'll see with all the lions now and then in the grass, you can just see the back of the ears, those black behind the ears, and then you'll see the one just off to the right picked up the bone now and then. Luel, you had a question about the white lions. Do they get whiter in color as they grow older? So from what I've seen is when they were very young, they were like light in color, very white. But I think with laying down and as they are growing up, they tend to become a little bit darker, more like a dirty wash to the coat. And it might just because they're dirty. But to be honest with you, I'm not too sure. Like I've never seen white lions growing up to maturity, and who knows, maybe this could be an opportunity to see that. I don't know, maybe if you've heard something about it or read a bit about it, but just from what I've seen is when they were born, they were very white in color, and as they're now growing older, it looks like they have more of a dirty wash to them. But as I said, it could be because they're dirty. But he looks so tired. Look at how he's like resting his chin on his right paw or his right arm, just closing his eyes to rest up a bit. All right, we'll stick with these lions for a little while, so especially if they do start moving. But I'm pretty interested to hear what James will be up to this morning. And if everyone can just let me know what his plans are, let's head across to him and see what he's up to.
We're sitting here looking at some impala, wondering if they've seen a pack of wild dogs, but they don't look particularly terrified or alarmed. Some of them are feeding. One of them's looking a bit surprised, but they look surprised every time they look up, really. Now, just to keep you posted, we've had some information this morning from James Richard, and many of you will not know who James Richard is. James Richard is a fellow who lives in the United States and knows more about the characters and animals of the lowveld than anybody who actually lives here. It's unbelievably impressive. And he said that the pack of wild dogs that we had last night was not the same one as the one we had in the morning. And so there are two packs of wild hounds knocking about this area at the moment. Of course, they could be gone already because they move so far and so fast so quickly. But that particular little group of impala, to me, does not give the impression of a herd that has been harassed by Cape hunting dogs this morning. And a gorgeous chorus of Cape turtle doves is filling the lowveld dawn. Alright, let's go back up to andBeyond and Ngala. We'll continue our search for the hounds. You're going to go and have a look at the cats.
I just want everyone to have a look at this big male lion. So the young subadult, the one that's just under 4 years old, came and he lay down with the rest of the pride, but the male doesn't want him there. So we'll just sit here and have a look and see how he's going to deal with this, because maybe he might just chase him off. But let's try and listen. You can just hear this big male snarling at him at the moment, and the other one is trying to be submissive. He's pushing himself down. Look, look. don't know if everyone saw that big male, how he was tucking his back legs under his body, like almost getting ready to move forward. I think the young male knows his place in the pride, so he's moving off. Be interesting to see if this other male will follow him and or allow him to be that close. So it'd be interesting to see what happens, because this line right in front of us, this young male, did you notice like how he was constantly opening his mouth and lowering his head? So that's just showing that he is submissive, that he's not trying to challenge this big male. Because as soon as he tries to challenge him, he'll probably push him off. Now, it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen over the next little while, let's say over the next year or two, because you'll notice with this male in front of us, he's only just starting to show like a beautiful mane. Now, his dad used to be a very big lion that roamed in this area, and his dad was even bigger than that male you saw earlier with the big mane that creeped closer to him. So imagine him now in the next 2 or 3 years, how big he might be, and by that time he could even challenge one of these males for dominance. But it's very unlikely. I mean, he's all by himself unless he joins up with other males, but it'd be really hard for him to try and take on 2 male lions, especially the same size as he would be. Reda, well, I see with the lions, you've noticed that they don't really take too much notice of us. It's because they don't associate us with any form of danger or food. So, I mean, just to give you an idea, with the vehicles, we've been very lucky to be able to see them, and with any animal, they have a comfort zone. So if we would go closer to these lions, then you'll see they'll probably pick up their heads and they'll feel very uncomfortable with the vehicle and they move off. But because we are far enough away from them, they don't really mind us. And also, since they were young, they were introduced or they were used to vehicles. But let's say if we had to change the scenario, if I had to get off on foot right now at this moment, you'll probably find that these lions would run off. Because they do associate that with possible danger. But however, with the vehicle, they don't associate that with danger. It's just because they're used to it. If I can make an example, let's say if we can use people as an example. So let's say you've grown up in a city your whole life, and you're always used to cars. Then it means you'll move, and there'll be cars driving behind you. You'll know they're there, but you don't really notice them or take too much notice of them. However, if you would have grown up in a rural area and you've never seen a car in your whole life, and a car comes past, you might have a different approach. You might be a little bit scared, hesitant about it, maybe inquisitive, come closer to investigate. And the same with these lions. They just know that they don't associate us with danger, and we don't try and push those boundaries. As soon as we give them their space, they'll feel comfortable with us being here. And then we always go and say that we are the spectators here. We just want to see them in their natural behavior and try and not disturb them as best as we possibly can. Bradley, age 8, that lives in Australia, you were asking, do the lions often eat plants? So what I've noticed that they mainly carnivores, in other words, they mainly eat meat. But what I have noticed is sometimes if they do have an upset stomach, they'll go and they'll eat grass, like these fresh, lush green grass, almost like similar. I don't know, Bradley, if you've ever seen it with either a dog at home or maybe a cat. Sometimes if they do have an upset stomach, how they'll go and eat the grass. I'll be interested to know where the other lions are laying down, because I can see quite a few on the road. Let's quickly just listen. We might be able to hear that crunching. even here in the background as we're trying to listen out for this lion crunching, there's a bird going like. And that bird that's called is called the Cape Turtle Dove, or the new name is a ringneck dove. And it's sometimes we as guys often say, it says, work harder, work harder. If you do hear that in the back. But that male has moved on to quite a nice position. You can see there's a bit of sunlight that just caught his eyes, and his eyes had this like yellowish shine to it. But that's quite different to those white lions. They have more of a grayish color. But it'd be nice to see if he picks up his head again. So while we spend some more time with these lions, I heard some exciting news that Lauren was able to find Ribbon the hyena. Let's go and have a look.
Ribbon is here with a humongous belly, which is good news. She had something to eat last night. Who knows what? But she is full. And of course, James and Darby managed to see a little cubby last night. They weren't sure if they managed to see two or not, but that's great news. It's really, really great news because we were sitting here day after day. Yes, Ribbon. And not seeing any cubs. I wasn't even hearing them, but they're there. We just have to remember they're very, very young. Normally, you would actually not see hyena cubs at this stage. This is not the communal den. And I think we just got lucky. We just got really, really lucky because we were witnessing Ribbon, very suspicious about her behavior. I think I knew she was pregnant, so I started to do hyena den searches. Because we know the dens, we know the sort of network of dens that they have, and we just got really, really lucky to see the cubs when we did. So we have to remember they're very, very young. I think in a week or two we'll start to see them bounding about and up to all sorts of nonsense. William, age 5, you are asking, do hyenas... I missed that, Natalie. Sorry, someone is talking on my other radio. I'm just going to turn it down. Stick together. William, the females do. So the females in a clan will stick together. So if Ribbon's cubs are females, they'll probably stay with Ribbon's clan, which is a Djuma clan, for a very, very long time. They won't leave. They may even become matriarch themselves. But the males, normally around 2 years old, they will leave. It's a different life to be a hyena female than it is to be a hyena male. And it's important that the males leave so that they can disperse, William, and they can go and find ladies. So it's a completely different life. Some males can stay with the clan forever, but generally speaking, they don't. They leave and they go join another clan. I love the way Ribbon's got her back legs positioned. They've got very slim, weak back legs in comparison to their forelegs, their front legs. Okay, we may stay here just a little bit longer, but then we will leave and see what else we can find on this glorious morning. And as we do that, we're going to send you back across to James.
Righty, we have our first mammal of the day. It is the Waterbuck. A little group of bachelors who I think are looking very sprightly in the morning light. And I'm mostly impressed because they are not running away from us. While you enjoy the Waterbuck, I shall tell you that I found one track of a wild dog, not the whole pack, and apparently the pack went east yesterday evening, and that means they went into Torchwood, which is the reserve to the east of us into which we cannot go. I've just heard that on the radio. Oh, did you see that one yawn? It is quite early, and he is basically a teenager, and so to be up out of bed at all is going to cause yawning. Now, this is the kind of standard thing for most antelope to do, and in fact not only antelopes. Before males become big enough to fight for mating opportunities, they tend to congregate in groups, in all-male groups, and even our own species does a very similar sort of thing. I can remember when I went off to university, the general form was for men to congregate in small groups of bachelors, with one or two more dominant individuals going into the melee that was the world of ladies. As teenagers, I suppose, even before that. That's a very common thing for humans to do. But you'll find it with impala, you'll find it with kudu, you'll find it with elephants, you'll find it with zebra, and there's a slightly bigger one giving what for to a slightly smaller one. And interestingly, the waterbuck apparently inflict more death on each other than any other antelope. So, they don't run around killing each other, but when they do fight, it can be tremendously severe. And they also don't seem to look like they've seen a pack of wild dogs come hurtling past here in the last little while. Big pack of dogs would take a waterbuck this size, so they'd be nervous of a big pack. So you say you like their bottoms with the toilet seat marks? Yes, toilet seat, target, all sorts of different descriptions for the bottom of the common waterbuck. Up in East Africa we get the Defasa waterbuck, and the Defasa waterbuck doesn't look like it's got a loose seat on its bottom, it looks like it has a urinal imprinted on its bottom. So that's how you tell the difference. Well, there's a much bigger bull there. Tony, we don't really know why they've got such long hair, and it looks like it's extremely furry and thick. But in actual fact, it's quite sparse, because to be furry out here in the middle of summer would be profoundly silly. So there's all sorts of theories about how the waterbuck's hair is perhaps so long because they spend so much time in the water, but they don't spend so much time in the water at all. They spend a moderate amount of time running into the water if they're threatened, and the bulls certainly set up territories around the water, but you will very seldom see a waterbuck in the water. In fact, I've seen more impala and Ngala in the water running away from predators than I ever have waterbuck. So I'm not really sure why they have hair that long. It might be just the way that they've evolved. There must have been a reason way back, but I don't understand why they should be uniquely long-haired. You might find that their ancestors lived in slightly colder conditions. Perhaps it's a throwback to that time, and rather than getting shorter, the hair's just got sparser. The lechwe, which is a relatively close relative of the waterbuck, also spends much more time in the water, but also only up to its ankles. It's not like it scuba dives around the place. So it's difficult to say. Now this is fascinating. I've just received word that Nikki's lions are laying, which is astounding to me because I was pretty sure that they were mammals.
Oh, it's going to flop down. Boom. So we were just sitting earlier on and just having a look at this little white female that came across. She was laying in the tall grass right next to her dad, and then she decided, no, she's going to come up and then move closer to this other young male that's in the road. So she is, like I would say, definitely my favorite in the pride. I didn't really have too many favorites because all the animals are basically, I love all of them. But she just really stands out for me from all the other animals. And the reason being is because, first, the colors of her eyes. So I'm hoping with the sunlight on her, she might just turn towards us at some point in time. But also, like, she doesn't, even though she is one of the smallest individuals within the pride, she doesn't back down from the others. Like, sometimes, even if they are feeding, she'll be the one that gets right in there to try and get a piece of meat and then move out as quickly as she can. So very opportunistic and also very brave. Earlier on, we noticed that all the so earlier on, as we were looking at the whole pride, and some of them came across like over the road, you could see like most of the bigger ones didn't even get like any bit of meat, or they weren't covered by anything. But this little one was covered, and it just tells me that she was probably just using that as an opportunity to see how much you can get from that carcass. Joshua, from Australia, you were asking about how many teeth a lion would have. To be completely honest with you, I do not know. I always used to tease the rangers and said, like, I'll try and stay away from those teeth as far as I possibly can, especially when they do get close. But like, I honestly don't know. I don't know if any of the viewers will probably like have an idea more or less how many teeth a lion would have. I'd love to hear. So the viewers that want to give us that answer, if you can just let us know on Instagram, Twitter, like at hashtag WildEarth or at FC. Like, really love to hear from everyone. And also, what do you think about these lions? Like, which one would you say is your favorite amongst them, and why? Like, I'd love to hear that. Lachlan, age 8, you were asking how many females could be in a pride. That's a very good question. I mean, it all depends on the size of the pride. So mainly, a pride will be consisting out of females and their youngsters. And it could vary. I've seen some areas where there's only one lioness and she's all by herself. But I have also seen prides of up to 34 lions where over 20 of those lions, more than almost like 25 of those lions would be female. So it all varies in the size of the pride. And even if you look at this one here, let's just have a count and see how many females are just laying in this open dirt road right in front of us. Like, I'll just want to quickly count. I mean, just sitting here, I can already see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's difficult to see the other ones that are laying back because when they're young, it's really hard to see if it's a male or a female because they don't really have a mane. They'll only start showing signs of mane once they get to like a year and a half and older. So before that, we'll probably have to look between the legs to see if it's a male or a female. But just, as I said, just in the row, there's quite a few females. But it all depends on how big the pride would be. Well, so I heard from that there was quite a few viewers that were like really getting involved and letting us know about the number of teeth. So altogether 30 teeth, that is amazing. I honestly didn't know that. I mean, I've been in conservation probably now for the last 8 years, and I've never even thought about that. So it's so interesting. Thank you all for those amazing questions, and so nice to be able to learn something new every day. I've just had a look at how these lions are laying down, and I would like to make another illustration. So remember when we had those wild dogs, we said the wind was playing quite an important role and how the lions, or how the wild dogs would move and lay down. Now, if you look at these lions, there is a slight breeze blowing from us towards them, so more or less this direction. So I have this little ash bag, I don't want to shake it now, but if I had to push this and the ash would come out, it would most likely hit towards those lions. Now, often with lions in particular, you'll see that when they lay down, and some of the other predators like wild dogs, even leopard, maybe even cheetah, which I'm hoping that during the time of the show we'll be able to see some cheetah, but they'll lay down in a similar position where they'll face downwind. So if anything comes from downwind, they'll be able to see it. But if something moves behind them on this side, they'll be able to smell it. So by doing that, even though it just looks like a few lions laying down on the road, they actually have laid down in such a strategic way that they have a 360-degree awareness of what's going on around them. It just shows you how amazing nature is and how clever, actually. And I don't think it's going to be too long. You can see the sun is coming up. It was a cold morning. It is warming up, and you'll see more and more rays of sun on these lions. And eventually what will happen from here is as it warms up, you'll see there's quite a few trees off to the left and the right. And I wonder from here, they might just head to one of these trees and lay down. And the waterhole is also not too far away from here. They might even get up and start going to the waterhole. So I think it's really worth it for us to stay with these lions for the next little while, because you never know on their way, if they do start moving. Remember, we said they're so opportunistic. There might be something that they could possibly go for. So, Debbie, you had a question earlier if the Ross male is here. So it looks to me that both the Ross males are here. So those two big males that we saw earlier. So the one that we saw that wanted to possibly push that young subadult away, he laid down just on the right of us, and further on from where he is now, there was another male that laid down. So both the Ross males are here at the moment. And it was interesting because for a while they left the pride, and what they could have been doing is probably have gone into an area to go mark their territory, maybe chase any other males around, and then they came and joined up with the pride again. Okay, let's head across to James. We're still going to be with these lions for the next little while. Apparently, James is near a waterhole somewhere, and he has found a very interesting little bird. Let's go have a look.
So that's the standard issue little grebe that we've been seeing for ages and ages. It's got a much nicer, used to have a much nicer name, and that is dabchick. But what's interesting is that there is a juvenile in here. There it is. It's just popped up. There we are. And it looks quite distinct from the adult. Now, when I saw it initially, I thought that perhaps there was some rare arrival of another kind of grebe, but a bit of research showed that that was just a juvenile of the same species. In fact, I mean, younger than juvenile, almost. So I'm sure that's a parent and his or her offspring. No sign of any predators, I'm afraid, at this stage. And so we are looking at some grebes, but we will continue our search in the hopes that the wild hounds will pitch up at some stage. Oh, anything else really? In such a gorgeous morning, it doesn't really matter. Yelling there of a Natal spurfowl. A couple of blacksmith lapwings and Egyptian ghouls. No, it's not an Egyptian goose, that's that young knob-billed duck. The young knob-billed duck. We also have a very nice sighting there of Lauren, Arthur and David driving past. Oh, I can hear hyena calling. Must mean that Lauren's left the hyena den on account of having staked it out for another hour and Ribbon being uncooperative. Hello Banshee, you're wondering if there are any crocodiles in here. No, no crocodiles in here at the moment that we know of. But as I always like to say, the fastest way to end up with a serious injury or dead is to get into water assuming that there are no crocodiles in it. Just because you haven't seen a crocodile here in the last little while doesn't mean there isn't one, and we have seen crocodiles in this particular dam from time to time. They don't seem to hang around for long, but we have seen them. And you just never know. Nostrich, you're wondering if these grebes are better parents than the Egyptian goose. I don't know. It's a good question. For those of you who are new viewers, there's a pair of Egyptian geese that lived at that first waterhole that I stopped at, and we watched them birth, 4 or 5 different clutches of chicks and lose every single one of them. And then this last year they seem to have figured out how to do it a bit more competently. I don't know if the grebes are a bit more successful. I think you'll probably find that they are, because they do lay a lot of eggs sometimes. I'm not sure. We've only got the grebes here because we've had such a lovely wet year, and often we don't have grebes at all. Little grebe interaction. You can see how the juvenile bird is very fluffy in comparison with the adult. Jenna, they're diving underwater to feed, and they're looking for tadpoles and insects, and if they're lucky they'll get a feech or two, but I don't think there are any feech in there. Their diet, aquatic animals including fish, frogs, tadpoles and insects. Right, Lauren's just driven past us. I think she's on her way to the eastern boundary. Let's go and catch up with her.
I was trying to contact you, James. That's what I was up to, but he ignored me. That is fine. We don't want to do the same roads. So naturally, can you let James know I'm trying to reach him? James, do you copy? I don't think he's copying, everyone.
No, I'm decoding.
Which route are you planning to take?
I'm going to go up to Dams Road.
Copy. I'm going to go up Drakensberg. What is happening in front of the vehicle? What are you guys doing? Got some Franklins here. They're chasing one another. Clearly full of beans this morning. I think it's just one that's annoying the other one, actually. Oh, the birds are waking up now. See, it's warm enough. We are surrounded. Okay, let's continue onwards. I want to try and cover as much area as I can at this stage before we head back and maybe check in on Ribbon. I feel at this stage, because the cubs are so young, she's just suckling at odd times. Really, really odd times, not the usual sort of sunrise and sunset time. Just whenever these cubs get hungry, because they are so young, it will be at regular intervals, and we've just been missing it. So we'll just keep popping in if these Franklins decide to let me pass. Excuse me, chaps. I don't mean to bother you, but I need to drive. I think maybe if you got off the road... No, okay. I think they like this sometimes, but it scares me. There we go. Okay. I do not know where any of our leopards are. Davi and I were just saying this is utterly baffling how they have all managed to disappear. And the last I heard of Tingana was when he was on Arathusa. I didn't see any signs of him crossing back in. I haven't had any updates on Hukamuri. I don't know where anybody is. Can you just repeat that name, Natalie, one more time, please? Herman, thank you, Davi. H, Herman, there we go. You are asking, do we get flat tires? Yes, we do. All the time. We're equipped, everything on board to change the tire. And luckily, I always have a cameraman with me, Herman, and therefore they help. We don't do it on a solo mission. It's not easy. But yes, we get flat tires all the time. Everything that you could possibly think that could go wrong for us out here goes wrong. Flat tires, crash into trees, run out of petrol because you didn't check your petrol levels. What else can possibly go wrong? People fall off vehicles. Lots of things happen out here. Hooting vehicles, how could I forget about that? Just recently, I think it was last week, my vehicle, Jigga, just started continuously hooting. I could not stop this sound. Non-stop. So I had to drive home and everybody heard me coming and I was mortified. I was so embarrassed. Even Owen was really embarrassed. And all the animals just looked at us, the impalas, as if to say, what on earth? Yes, it was so embarrassing. We came back to camp and it was still going. A big bird over there is miles away, Davi, but I feel like we can try and have a look at what it might be. And we had to disconnect the battery, not myself. Of course, I don't know where car batteries are, but we had to disconnect the battery in order to stop that awful sound. This bird is some sort of raptor. Brown. It's a tawny colour. I wonder if it's a tawny eagle. I'm trying to have a look. I'm very far away. I'm using my binos. I can't see if the feathers are going all the way down the legs. Can you see that, Dobby? Too far away. If the feathers are not going all the way down the eggs, then it can be a snake eagle. If the feathers do go all the way down the legs, then of course it's a true eagle and it will not be a snake eagle. Oh, I've got a little grasshopper on my banana. I think it's better if you actually get off my banana, little grasshopper. Hey, look at that. My very ripe banana. Someone is trying to steal it from me this morning. Can you see that, Dobby? A very, very small little grasshopper. I'll move out the way. These types of grasshoppers get much, much bigger. And of course, already straight away, you can see those really, really long hind legs. Immediately, you know it's a grasshopper. How sweet. I think you're going to have to get off my banana, mister. I may want to eat that at some point in time, yes. You are gorgeous and very young, I think. Okay, I'm going to put this guy down. Okay. This is actually the road I was driving yesterday where I ended up bumping into wild dogs. So literally, you never know what is round the corner. But of course, Nicky, all the way at andBeyond in Ngala, he does know what is round the corner because he's lucky enough to be sitting with his lions.
So welcome back to andBeyond in Ngala. We just had a look at this male that's gotten up, and now you'll see there's a bit of grass right in front of it and some weeds, and I asked Marcel very kindly if he would be kind enough to go and just move it for us so we can have a better look, but he just seems to refuse. I don't know why. But I just wanted to take that opportunity while we wait for these lions to see if they might start moving. It is warming up quite a bit, so that's really nice. It's almost to a temperature where we have to take off our jackets. But I just wanted to take the opportunity just to show everyone more or less the movements of these lions over the last little while. So the first time they were seen was right over on this side here, from when we started with the show on the 1st of this month. And so from there on, they did a loop all the way down here onto this area here. And from there, they went all the way around, they did a loop, and they came up to this side here. And since that whole time here, we didn't see them hunting anything. It might have been something small if they had anything, but nothing major. And then from there on, they came all the way through to round about this section here. And that's where you saw them yesterday, where they were chased by that elephant. So they were chased by the elephant, and also the wind was blowing from this side all the way up. So they started moving into the wind, looking for any hunting opportunity, and eventually they came out right over here on this road where we are now. And remember earlier I said there was a water hole? So just on this side here, there's a beautiful water hole. That's not too far. I mean, as the crow flies, it'll probably be like 2 kilometers away from us, or just over, just under, just maybe above or just under 2 kilometers roughly. And that's more or less, if these lions will start moving to a water hole, they'll move in that direction. But early on, we also said that it looked like they made a kill on a kudu. And I just thought to show some of the viewers what a kudu looks like is this antelope right over here. So it's one of those beautiful antelopes. They have these spiral horns, but this might have been a very young one. And you'll also see the stripes on these kudu. So they prefer areas that are quite dense, because all those markings help to break out their outline. They also have quite big round ears like those wild dogs we saw the other day. Because of the area that they occur, they don't really rely as much on sight as they are of hearing and making sure that they move really quietly in the bush. Savanna, that are only 4 years old in Johannesburg, you were asking that the lions like maybe kill something big or that they eat a lot during the night. So personally, I don't know if they might have caught something else, but just judging from their movements and where they moved off to, and what we saw this morning, I think the only bit of food that they had was from early this morning. And the other thing about lions is, remember, they're pretty lazy animals. Sometimes they can sleep up to 20 hours a day. So it's one of those things where if you stay with them, they could start moving, but you just don't know. And with them, it's in an instant. So if, let's say, we were sitting here and suddenly something had to walk past them, they would immediately get up and try and use that opportunity. But if there's nothing, they could be laying like this for the next 20 hours before they start moving. And also the other thing is, just imagine for them, if they do move in the day, it's a lot easier to see them. At night, it's difficult to spot them, so it's more likely that when they hunt at night, they will be successful. But in the daytime, it's easy where another, let's say if there's a zebra or wildebeest or impala, if they see them, they can quickly run away. So the chances are that the lions would rather rest up in the heat of the day and start moving when it cools down, and when they can use the night in order to hunt. Just that whole element of surprise. But they are so relaxed. Like if you just look at the way that they're laying down, they haven't moved at all. And Liz, you were asking a question earlier on about, is it normal for lions to sleep on a road? So it's not necessary. Like they could have rested anywhere. I think the reason why they probably hunkered down here, it was nice and open. Sometimes, and especially this area we are now, there's a lot of rocks. And so it's more comfortable to lay down on a flat, smoother surface, like the road, than laying down possibly in tall grass, where the grass, especially now with some of the grass species drying up, that could prick them, or maybe they lay down on the branch. It's a bit more uncomfortable for them. So that's why they probably lay down in the road. You'll see if the road was uneven and there was a few rocks in it, they might have even laid on the side. Like that one off to the right, you'll see there's a male that's actually enjoying. He's made himself, it looks like a comfy nest. The only thing you can see is his back feet sticking out of the grass. Just have a look at that. So he's laying on his back, nice and comfy, with his legs splayed open. Probably one of the males that had quite a bit to eat, or the majority to eat. So just laying in such a way that it is comfortable for them. So like for lions, it's all about just being comfortable. And so I think the road at this given point in time, and looking at the area around, will probably be one of the most comfortable places to lie in. John T, that is only 4 years old. So you were asking a very good question, like, how loud is a lion's roar? Now, apparently they say that at night, sometimes you can hear lions as far as 5 miles away on a very clear night. But just to give you an idea, if I can tell you a bit about my experience about how lions, if they roar, how does it feel? Now, I've been very fortunate enough to be quite close to lions whenever they started roaring. Now, I don't know if you've ever, I know the guys were doing some impersonations of animal sounds last night, but normally with lions when they roar, it's a deep guttural call. It's like so it's a very deep call that comes out from, it almost sounds like it's coming out of the stomach. And when you sit quite close to it, it almost feels like the hair on your face or around your ears, like it all feels like it's vibrating. That's how loud it is. And the vehicle feels like it is shaking. It's beautiful to hear, and you can hear it for quite far. In the morning sometimes, I would say you'll probably hear it up to 4 or 5 kilometers away. So Lee, you did some research on how loud it would be, and what is it, 114 or 104 decibels? 114, that's probably the best way to describe it. It does, like when you are near them, it does feel like it is just ear deafening. It is, it's a really, like, I think sometimes even listening to it on the camera or on a recording does it so much injustice because it's a lot louder than it seems. Howard, age 11, you were asking, do both males and females roar? And the answer is yes, they do. So sometimes with the males, so you know those big males we saw earlier on, they have their territory, but the females also have a territory. Now, territory is an area that they mainly have, and they'll try and chase all the other lions away from that particular area because that's where they get their food, that's where they mate, so that's their particular home. And when the males move away from the females, they'll often roar and to try and find where the females are. Because you can imagine, let's say you walk in this massive area, there's no cell phones, there's no anything like that. So in order for them to communicate, they need to roar and tell each other, okay, here I am, where are you? And so sometimes the males will roar and the females as well, and then they can find each other by doing that. But the other thing as well is females would roar and tell the other females that this is my area, they're not allowed to get in here. So as soon as another pride moves into their area, they'll chase them out of their area because they don't want them sharing the same place. So from what I heard earlier, there's quite a few kids that are I just had a look at this one female. She picked up her head. Kelly, you had a very interesting question about the white lions and if they are more susceptible to possibly any other disease or illness, isn't it? And I'll get back to that now. I just want to have a look at what she might be up to because she's one of the older females. So I think as soon as she gets up, the others will probably start joining. But to be honest, Kelly, I don't know too much about, like I do know that they do stand out quite a bit from the other lions. So in terms of disease and that, I do not have a thorough understanding about it. However, like, I mean, if there's anyone that knows a bit more about it, like, I'd love to hear from that. But from my personal experience, I haven't really seen them like down because of diseases or anything like that, but more likely because they stand out so much in comparison to the other lions. So more often they are the ones that, if soon as there's any other predators that go for them, other than the tawny lion that could be easily hidden away, you might find that the white lion will stand out, and things like hyenas could possibly go for those youngsters. And also the other thing is, because they stand out, as soon as another male comes in to try and take over their territory, and if they're quite young, they might see them as potential threat later on, and so then they try and get rid of them. Because the thing is about male lions is they don't tolerate other males' genes within the pride. So we're going to stay with these lions, see what they might be up to, as we said, a bit later on. If they don't move, we might move off from here, but for now we'll stick with them. And I heard some amazing news that James found the giraffe. Let's head across to James.
Well, I'm not sure how amazing it is. I mean, if it was an okapi that I'd found, I'd describe it as amazing news, but it's certainly pleasant to have found a giraffe here. A bull, same bull we've been seeing for the last little while, and he's just having a good morning feed here as Monday takes hold. Of course, he's totally oblivious to the fact that it's Monday. He's indeed entirely oblivious to our human struggles, and isn't that just so grounding and so comforting? That nature is just continuing, regardless of what we are doing. Although giraffes are quite curious, of course, so they are generally pretty interested in us and our arrival. And as soon as he noticed us, he stopped feeding and began to just stare. His mother never told him that it was rude to stare, and so now he is staring at us. Totally still. He's chewing at least. You can't even see. Chewing. We've covered a lot of ground this morning. We could have employed the same strategy as Lauren to try and cover as much of the reserve as possible, as quickly as possible, so as to see if there were any packs of hounds knocking about. No luck so far, obviously. And so now we're heading up towards the western corner to see what's going on there. Snazzy what? Steph? Zip? Snap? Snazzy? Something. Snazzy Zep. Snazzy Zep. I don't know if giraffes sneeze. I imagine they probably do. I know that horses sneeze. I know that elephants sneeze. I know that I've seen wildebeest sneeze, zebra sneeze, lions. So I'm going to say yes, they probably do have the odd tickle up the nasal passages, which results in them going, achoo, achoo. It must be quite nice being that tall. When you're 5'8", it's difficult to imagine, of course. Mangy giraffes were for many, many years thought to be silent, but they are not in fact silent. Apparently, they make low infrasonic sounds to each other, most at night, apparently. They almost sing to each other at night. Infrasound means that the frequency is too low for us to hear. So it's lower than the lowest note on the piano, a bit like elephants. And apparently that's how they talk to each other. They can bellow. I've heard them bellow before when they're in distress. But mostly it's this low infrasonic rumble that no one else can hear except other giraffes and most likely elephants, I suppose, given that they communicate in the same way. And you can see he's got a very fashionable nose and face. It is the sort of classic giraffe warrior look, with a great big ossification in front of his ossicones or horns. Nothing hurried or rushed about this fellow. I find that a lot with many animals out here, but possibly the giraffe more than anything else. Well, other than lions, of course. There never seems to be a great frantic need to get engaged with too many activities. Marlena, the giraffes live in both in groups and on their own. Sometimes you will see a few cows together. Sometimes you'll see a few bulls together. Mostly the older bulls like this chap live on their own, and the cows in loose associations. And I say loose associations, and they're not permanent, and they can often be quite widely spaced. You know, they keep in visual contact and probably audio contact. But they don't have stable family units, like, say, elephants. Oh, it's getting nice and warm now. As we sit here, the sun is starting to heat things up, and I suspect that it's going to be 29 degrees later on today. I also suspect that if I sat in the sun here for too much longer, I'd fall fast asleep. So pleasant is it on our backs. And you might just be able to hear in the background a Nediki calling. Chip, 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 chip. No, Lewis D. Lyon, I think I cannot sing to this poor giraffe. I harassed the wildebeest with my song yesterday evening. I don't think I can do the same to this poor giraffe. Too early in the morning, you know, I haven't warmed my voice up. Can anyone hear that Nediki? Very quiet. It's a nice bird to hear. It's a little nondescript brown cisticola. It's calling now. You'll have to have a good set of speakers on your computer, I think. Alrighty, let's move along. Goodbye, Mr. Giraffe. Michelle, it's just an English convention, you know. Lots and lots of different animals are known as bulls or cows. Even crocodiles, whales, what else? Obviously all of the ungulates out here, and then strangely horses or the equids are not, they're stallions and mares. Yeah, it's just an English convention. It's got nothing to do with biology or logic, it's just how it's kind of turned out. And in actual fact, when you talk about cows, we normally think of dairy and cattle. The actual animal you're talking about there is cattle. So you get bull cattle and you get cow cattle. I don't know where Lauren is, but I think she's also covered much of Djuma today. Let's go and find out where she's going.
I have covered a lot of Djuma. Well, the roads that James hasn't, essentially. And there's a high chance we could, of course, drive past animals. But that's why I try to drive so slowly, just to see if anything is moving through the long grass. The flick of a tail, ears, anything. But sadly, nothing so far. I will not give up. The leopards are waiting for us somewhere. And of course, winter will fast approach out here. It will be here before we know it. And in winter, all these little pans and puddles at the side of the road will completely dry up. They won't exist anymore. And therefore, predators, prey, elephants, they'll all be restricted to going to certain water points access to water like this will just not be available anymore. And therefore, we have a higher chance of seeing predators in winter, A, because of the water access, and B, because of all this thick, lush vegetation, which is beautiful, will die, and it will become short again. You'll be able to see right through the blocks. There'll be no green colour. It'll be barren. It'll be very monotonous. It'll be yellow, but you'll be able to see. Not great for photography, but great for spotting predators. Really? You're asking, have I ever had an animal come up to the safari car? Yes, many times. We had a leopard called Hosanna. I'm sure many of you are very aware who Hosanna is. He's said to be the most famous leopard in the entire world, actually. He's a celebrity. He's no longer with us. He's alive. Sorry, I phrased that completely wrong. He's just no longer in this area. He dispersed, as most male animals do. And he used to use the car, so he'd be hunting. You'd see him, and you'd see what he was hunting. It would normally be Impala. And of course, we never hunt, ever, ever, unless it's by complete accident. So we position in such a way that we can view what's going on, but we never get in between it. But Hosanna used to see the car and think, this is great. I am going to use the car to hide. And hide right next to our tires. So the Impala normally, it was always Impala, didn't see him. Now that shows quite a high level of cognitive ability from my point of view. It's very intelligent. And in the Masai Mara, we used to broadcast from the Masai Mara too. I had a cheetah called Busara who just loved the car. She used to come up to the car, scratch herself on the tire. It used to look like it felt great, and fall asleep in the shade of the tire. I just missed my opening, bear with me. And yes, many animals come up to the car. I've had lions as well. But they don't want to harm you. I think James was mentioning yesterday that they don't actually see the human on the car. So they see the vehicle as a whole, but they don't necessarily pick out that there's a bipedal man sitting on the car. It's more of a unit. If we were to jump off the car and approach the animal, it would completely change the situation. I thought that was a snake there, it's a stick. I'd much rather it was the other way around, but sadly not. So yes, if we were to jump off the car, it would become a very, very different situation. We would become a primate, we would become a threat. We are a bipedal animal coming towards them, and the entire scenario would change. But of course we don't do that. Butterfly, honestly, we would give you updates if we get them. I have not heard a single peep on any of the leopards. Of course, the Sabi Sands in general, not just our northern sector, is very quiet. Lodges have shut down, everything's closed, everything's in lockdown, and there's no one around. But I have not heard a peep, and I haven't even seen a track. Not a single track. I'm guessing, if I had to guess, Butterfly, she's in Buffelshoek. Oh, spiderweb. I hate that feeling on my face. Yes, I think she's in Buffelshoek, and she's maybe on a kill there. She's maybe got dikers stacked up. She's got our quarantine rations stacked up, and she's just not needed to come into Djuma for a while. Or she's been extremely elusive. I've not had a single peep. James had her. Was that with you, Davi? Yeah, James and Davi had her at Buffelshoek Dam a few days ago. But other than that, I don't know why we're not really seeing Tlalamba at the moment. Or Chingana. I really don't know. But I promise you, as soon as we get any sort of updates, you will be the first people that get to know. Edwin, you're asking why don't we put trackers on the leopards? Now, I'm going to guess you don't mean a human tracker that sits in that seat. I think you're asking about devices possibly GPS devices or chips or satellite tags. I think that's what you mean. That's not ethical out here, not at all. We actually discuss it quite a lot, how it would be great if you could just wake up in the morning, open an app or open your phone and know exactly where the animals are. But one, that's not ethical at all. And unless it was for science and it was contributing to a wealth of data, it's wrong. The animal would be bombarded by tourists. Everyone would go straight there, and then it's not a real live safari. The whole point of safaris is waking up in the morning or going out in the afternoon and not knowing anything and trying to piece it all together. It's a bit like detective work. Consultant detective would be good at that. And you've got to look for tracks and smells and signs and sounds. And of course, sometimes there's nothing. Not had a very lucky morning this morning, not for the lack of looking. And sometimes there's everything. So I think if you were to wake up and know where everything is, it's not right. It's a very natural ecosystem here, and we are just here to observe and, of course, show all of you. So fingers crossed, I am going to come across some animals soon. I really hope so. But for now, we're going to send you lot back across to Nicky and see how he's getting on.
So these lions haven't moved a lot since you last saw them. You can actually see just a few of them have turned over to their back, a few have rolled around. And I think they might be here for quite a bit longer. What I think from here on, we'll probably start like doing a bit of a drive, go and visit some of the waterholes, and then later on come back and see what these lions are doing. But before we go there, there's a beautiful bird that just landed above where these lions are. I just wanted to quickly have a look. I think some of you would have seen it, quite a few of them. If you look at the colors on that bird, quite a bit of purple, bit of white around the face, and then there's two long feathers at the end of the tail. It's a lilac-breasted roller. And I wonder, like with this lilac-breasted roller being around, if he's just waiting for the lions to start moving and hopefully disturb like an insect or two so he can go and grab it. He's probably also keen for a little breakfast. Now, I know there's also quite a few kids watching the show as we speak. And I want to ask you if you'll be keen for a challenge. But the challenge is you have to help me. And what I want to do is, so for this afternoon's kit drive, I want us to see if we can possibly make fire using two sticks, the old traditional way. There's a few methods of using this one where we can use the bow method, this one where we can use a spindle with our hands and try and see if we can make this fire. But I need to know from your side, what are some of the things that I can possibly use in order to make a fire in the bush? And if you can tweet for us. So let's say if you can go to #WildEarth and let us know there, or even at FC and drop your comments. Let us know what are some of the things that you think I can use. And then as we go along, hopefully on this drive, I'll show you some of the things that I want to use. And see if we can maybe get some elephant dung, like try and break it up a little bit so we can put the coal in there. I'll show you some of the wood we can use. But let's try and make that. But I want to know, like, I can do it, but I want to know if the kids are going to be interested to see and do some survival lessons as we go along. So let me know. With these lions, they're not going to be heading anywhere pretty soon. I'll be waiting for those answers. Eventually, they might even just move into the shade as it warms up. But for now, let's carry on with our drive. Let's go explore some of the other areas of Ngala and see what we might find this morning. We'll just move out. All right, so we already have quite a few of the kids. So we have quite a few viewers already giving me some tips on how to make a fire in the bush. I'm definitely going to have a look at all of them and see if we can make that fire this afternoon. I'm super excited. So just to give you an idea, when you train to become an andBeyond ranger, it's quite a rigorous process because you have to do this 6.5-week selection course. And one of the challenges that we put ourselves as a ranging team, so when I did my training course, we were quite a few. We eventually, the only ones that were left we were 6 rangers that were left at the end of the course. And we made a little challenge and said every single fire that we start in the camp, we had to start with friction. And so we would challenge each other and find different ways of how long should the spindle be, how thick does it need to be so that we didn't get any blisters. I don't even know if you probably look at my hands here, you'll see there's some blisters from making fire quite a while ago. There's still some old, you can see the skin is off right over here. But this is actually one of, there was some guests with some kids that came the other day. And sometimes it's quite quick to do it, but other times it does take a bit of time. And a few blisters later and a few drops of sweat, and we didn't really get it at the end. But just to finish off with that story, so by the end of it, we were pretty good at making fire with 2 sticks. So as I said, let's try and see some of these methods that everyone could use. I know there's another one. So in the bush, if you, let's say on a survival situation, one of the things you always try and have with you is something called potassium permanganate or Cornish crystals. And what we used to do as kids is if you take that and you have like a little board and you drill a hole in it and you use a spindle and you mix that with a bit of sugar, and as soon as you do that, it starts lighting a little coal. And that's one of the ways. You can make char cloth. There's quite a few different things. Like one of my favorite things in the bush is trying to find different ways of how to use plants. Brent, naturally you were saying like possibly a battery with a bit of steel wool. I've heard about it and I've seen it work. That could be an option. Earlier on in comments, be using lenses, killers, maybe a flint, magnifying. There's so many ways, but let's try. We can gather the sticks, maybe get some elephant dung that we can use to put the coal in. Maybe we can collect some grass. I'll put it in my pocket so my body heat can start warming it up. But we'll continue with that discussion soon. James, sounds of elephant.
We have got a large elephant bull and his friend, also a large elephant bull, eating the branches of a marula tree here. Now he is a big fellow, and therefore were he to take displeasure at our presence, we would move away. Now he's listening to us, he's looking at us. That's what that head turned out the way it is indicating. He's doing some feeding and some watching. Oh, wonderful sound of him chewing. Ear flapping is nothing more than him cooing. I think it almost becomes habitual. The bull behind him is a bit smaller. So this guy is the bigger of the two. There's some audio breakup, sound breakup. I'm not sure what that means. This poor marula tree has taken a bit of a hammering today. Isn't that a wonderful sound? Sitting with a large branch in his mouth. Alessio, elephants will go into must, depending on their age, anything from once a year. It's normally sort of once a yearish, but it does depend on conditions, whether they've got enough nutrition in their bodies, whether there's a drought on, how old they are. So younger elephants, sort of 20-year-olds will have very short periods of must, interspersed quite widely. Those older bulls like this, I put him at about 35 or so, would have must probably once a year, and it could last for a few weeks at a time, maybe even months. Oh, he's loving his marula bark for breakfast. No, Cheryl, they don't. I've actually done it. I don't know how. I mean, they must know where our eyes are, but their eyes are apparently not the best. And I've looked long and hard into the dark amber eyes of an elephant, and no, I haven't noticed any actual response from them. So they're not like dogs, which respond quite negatively to being stared at in the eye. You'll hear people tell you also that you shouldn't maintain eye contact with a lion or a leopard if it's charging you. I think that's absolute garbage. I've done the same with lions and leopards. Sometimes on foot, but I mean, the chances of getting close to a lion or leopard on foot are very small, but so mostly in a vehicle. They glance up at your face. They don't make contact with your eyes like a domestic dog does. So you know that if a domestic dog is growling at you, to look it in the eye is a direct challenge. But I don't believe the same goes for, well, possibly any other species, I don't know. With a domestic cat, they don't notice. Likewise, an elephant, and I would say likewise, a lion or a leopard. I'm going to sit here a little bit longer and wait and see what this big old bull does, but Lauren has managed to find herself also in the company of elephants.
I have found some elephants. I was surrounded, and sadly they have all moved off. We do have a big bull here. Did you hear that? Yes, I think he's going to pop out, or is he? That is the question. He also may not. There's more up ahead on Road Derby. We can hear you, mister. You are not silent at all. No. Remy and Olivia, you are asking how long is an elephant's trunk? I don't know. I think it depends on the size of the elephants, Remy and Olivia. The bigger the elephant, like this big bull here, will have a much longer trunk. The younger elephants have a much shorter trunk, so it grows as they get older. But I would say from the sort of very end of their mouth to the very tip of the trunk, it's definitely longer than a meter in this bull here, and that's over 3 feet. So it depends on the size of the elephant. When an elephant is first born, its trunk is very, very short, and it looks silly. It looks really, really silly when you see a young elephant with a short trunk. But there's a reason for that, and the reason is so that it doesn't fall and trip on its own trunk, because they're very clumsy when they're young. And they're just learning how to manage their trunk and all those muscles inside. But I don't know how long a trunk gets in general. This is a huge bull here. Very boisterous bull. I'm hoping he's going to pop out. And his trunk will definitely be longer than a meter. It's also very thick. There's more muscles in an elephant's trunk than there is in the human body. It's a very complex organ that takes them a long time to learn how to use. Just like we need to learn how to write with a pencil. We're not born with that skill. Or if you are, you're a very cool baby. So young elephants need to learn how to use their trunk. Hello, sir. Khaki to crater. I hope I got your name right. I apologize if I didn't. They don't essentially eat the dead bark. No, not really. Elephants are famous for strip barking or ring barking trees, and they use their tusks to sort of dig into the dead bark, which is the outer layer of trees, make a sort of dent in it, and then they pull using their trunk. They pull all that outer layer off, and what they really want to get to is the cambium layer inside. That's the part of the tree that's actually alive, and it's filled with nutrients and minerals and all the deliciousness that an elephant actually wants. Now, in winter, when times are slightly more challenging for elephants, they are known to crunch through branches and shrubs. But essentially, what they really want is that inner layer, and it's called the cambium layer. That's where the sort of minerals and nutrients and water will run up and down a tree, in opposite directions, of course. Water is taken up from the roots and sent in an upwards direction towards the leaves of a tree. Just going to keep my eye on this bull, just in case he gets naughty. Hello. You just dropped some food. Wow, he's huge. My goodness. He's not, I don't think he's in must. I can't smell must. A must bull is very smelly. I can't smell anything, so I don't think he's going through that crazy hormonal stage that elephants do. So yes, water is taken up from the roots in a tree and sent upwards towards the leaves to nourish them for photosynthesis. And the exact opposite is happening with the nutrients and the minerals, which are from photosynthesis in the leaves, and they're sent downwards towards the roots. So within a tree, within the trunk, there's constant movement of water and minerals in the cambium layer, and that's what the elephants are after. Okay, we could hear some grimmed hornbills. I think we're going to turn around and try and look for them. And as we do that, we're going to send you back across to James.
Bill's going. Our elephant bull is still quite interested in us. He's looking and considering, but thankfully not chasing. It's interesting to ponder what's going through his vast head. As I said before, of course, the elephant has got, of any land mammal, the most neurons in its brain. Something silly like 250 billion of them. And so there's a huge amount going on in there. What might look like a slightly dim-witted stare most certainly isn't. to give you an idea, I think that's 2.5 times the number of neurons that we have in our rather large brains. Proportionately, our brains are bigger than theirs. Well, some people's are. I know some people with cavernous spaces between their ears. In general, the human being's brain is proportionately larger than the elephant's. Liz, that's a really interesting question, and I'd be very interested to know its origins. When do elephants make the Great Migration? They don't. There is no elephant migration, certainly not in this part of the world. In parts of Botswana, they will move into the Okavango Delta when it starts to get wet, so out of the Kalahari, or from various parts of the Kalahari into the Okavango Delta, but there's no real migration of elephants. They used to move seasonally in this part of the world between here and the mountains in the west, in the Drakensberg, and they do that up into the Drakensberg in the wintertime and then come down here for the summer. But they don't do that anymore because, well, there are about, I think it's 4 to 6 million people living on the western fringes of the reserves of the Lowveld, and so, the elephants are blocked from moving up into the mountains of the Drakensberg anymore. So, they're not typically a migratory species. They'll be sedentary as long as there's water and food to eat, and then if they need to move, they can. Some of them move quite widely. They'll move very widely within their home ranges, but they don't have an actual migration. So just to reiterate for those of you who are watching, perhaps wondering where we are, we're in South Africa, and what is termed the Great Migration, it takes place in the Mara Serengeti ecosystem of Tanzania and Kenya, which is about 1,600 miles north of us here. Well, between, say, 900 and 1,600 miles north of us, depending on where you are in the Mara Serengeti. And it's constituted by wildebeest, about 1.2 million of them, about 200,000 or 300,000 zebra, about the same, no, more than that, about 500,000 zebra, 200,000 or 300,000 Thompson's gazelles, and 20,000 eland. I think I've got those numbers roughly correct. There are no elephants involved in that migration, save for those that vacate areas that are inundated with wildebeest, and I think that's mainly because, frankly, the food tastes all like wildebeest dung and urine. After that, many canoeing, belching antelope have been through the grasslands of that great wilderness. So there is no elephant great migration, just like there are no elephant graveyards. Rosemary, I don't know if an elephant can hear my tummy grumbling. I know that lions can. It's quite interesting when you park next to lions and your stomach goes, immediately look up and then go back to sleep, quickly realizing that they're not about to be set upon. That the rumbling that elephants make, at least 80% of it we can't hear. So sometimes, if you look very carefully, you'll see the front of their foreheads almost shaking slightly, and that's because they're making these low rumbles. So it's only the upper registers of the rumbles that we hear as the sounds that they make. And so when I do that to an elephant, it sounds like a human being going. It doesn't sound like elephant communication to that elephant. This is very interesting. Apparently, Nikki is about to make fire from natural resources. I'm not sure how to make fire without natural resources, but it's bound to be very entertaining.
I hope everyone enjoyed those elephants with James and Lauren. I just quickly, while we were driving, I came past this one particular bush. Now, I know it is difficult to see from there, so I'll just take a little sample and I'll come closer to the vehicle. But this is from a bush known as a raisin bush. Now, when we do make fire with 2 sticks, often the spindle that we're going to be using, that straight stick, comes from a tree like this. You'll see some of them are pretty straight. I'll try and cut a little sample off, because this is also what, I don't know if anyone has heard or read up a lot about the Bushmen, the hunter-gatherers of Africa. And, sorry, don't want to run out of breath while doing this. So they would take this tree and they'll make arrows as well as their bow out of it. So if I strip the leaves off, you'll notice how straight the stick is. And you can basically bend it the way that you want it. And then from there on, it stays like that as it starts drying off. So you can imagine, like, how nice would that have been, like, let's say, for making an arrow, or even a spindle for fire. It's a little bit too thin, though, but just to want to show everyone the leaves on it. Also, another interesting thing is if you had to make rope out in the bush, you can just peel the bark off this tree, and it's a really strong bark, and then you can just twist it, and then, like, from there on, make a really, really strong rope from it. We'll try and see if we can make that at some other point in the drives, but this is just to show you a bit of the leaves. But you'll see very interesting color on it. It has like a very light. So I'll repeat the name of the tree now. I just wanted to quickly point out with the leaves here, see it has like a little glossy, like light green color. And at the back, it's more of a gray color. So it's called the raisin bush. For those who are interested in the scientific name, that might help with the search. It's called Grevia bicolor. So I think it could help with the search, because if you put in a raisin bush, it might throw out quite a few other different trees. But Grevia bicolor is the scientific name that might help with the search. But how interesting is that? We might just keep this one and see if we can make an arrow out of it later on to show everyone. And maybe some rope if we do strip it off. So as we're collecting everything, I'm getting more and more excited for this afternoon as well to try and see if we can make this. And I'm hoping that those comments are coming in of how the different ways we can make fire. I'm sure there's probably some people out there with amazing knowledge of how to do that. Now, as we're driving along, we are currently on a bit of a crest. And from here, we'll start going down into the river. And maybe see what we can see next to that big river that we drove past the other day. So let's make our way down here. We'll see what we can find. And then hopefully we can be as lucky as Lauren, because apparently she's found another elephant.
Sadly, our elephant left us. It was a naughty bull, a big bull, full of nonsense. But sadly, to the thicket, the whole herd have moved off into the thick bush. I'm afraid I don't think we'll be able to get any views of him. Now, we came this way to look for the ground hornbills. We can't hear them anymore. Ground hornbills are very, very animals. They're not like your red-billed hornbills or your yellow-billed hornbills that we, of course, see everywhere. They're much larger and measured by IUCN, so we were hoping to see some ground hornbills here. But if they are on the ground, as the name suggests, then we're going to be able to see them in this thick, long grass.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure why Lauren's signal is not working like it should be today. I thought the ground hornbills that I could hear were quite a long way north of where we are, and so I'm not sure if Lauren can hear different ones. But north of where we are, of course, is a place we cannot go. We're going to go back to that dam we began with today, just on the off chance that something hasn't come down as the day's warmed up. We've covered pretty much all of the reserve thus far, and we're now on quite comfortably the worst road on Djuma. So hold on tight. It's a fire break, to be fair, it's not really a road. There might be some bumping up and down, a bit of swearing from Owen in the back, a bit of cursing and grunting from me. We've almost done it, Owen. We've almost made it. I can smell buffalo, although I cannot see buffalo. There we go. We survived. Stout fellows that we are. I'm afraid, Georgina, I missed that question. Let's have it again, please. What animal do we see? Oh, what animals do we mainly see on a daily basis? Georgina, we mainly see, I'm assuming you're talking about mammals here, as opposed to all animals. The most common would be the Impala. We see them definitely every day. We see Waterbuck most days, kudu most days, Ngala most days, wildebeest every day, because there are a whole lot of them on the clearings outside the camp. Then we'll see hippos every day, because they're in the water. If the elephants are around, we'll normally see them every day. But, yeah, those are the sort of main mammals that we see. Then slightly less frequently would be things like dwarf mongoose and what else? Duiker, steenbok. We also definitely see scrub hares every single evening, without fail. Scrub hares are very reliable content at night. There's another elephant. That's nice. Hello. I wonder if this isn't attached to the same herd that Lauren's got. This one is having a little suckle, a little milk break. It's quite cool to see, actually. I've always thought the mechanics of how an elephant suckles look to be rather uncomfortable for the baby. Isn't that cool? Now often when you hear elephants making a loud noise, they make a screaming, and it sounds like it sounds like an adult elephant going absolutely crazy. But in actual fact, when these calves are denied access to the breast, as it were, when they're trying to suckle, they get extremely upset. And they make a terrific noise. Ione, you want to know why small elephants are as small as human beings? No, they are not. They are much, much bigger than that. They're 100 kilograms when they're born. I've just got a bit of a confusing message from the final control saying, instead of a baby elephant, Ione, am I misunderstanding your question? Ione, I'm afraid I can't really understand your question. You say, why are baby elephants like a small person instead of like a smaller version of an elephant? As small as a person instead of just a smaller version of an elephant. They are just a smaller version of an elephant. They're 100 kilograms when they're born, and that's much bigger than any human being, or most human beings. 100 kilograms is a massive human being. So I think they are like small human beings. They're not like small human beings, like small elephants, sorry. I've got flummoxed by that. I can hear another elephant off to the left. Let me just move briefly. Did you see it? Should we wait here or go forward? Ah, there it is. Yes, Monique, it is entirely possible. There he is. He's just over this bush here.
To go forward for that.
Okay, let me go forward slightly. Monique, it's entirely possible that an elephant could go here all the way to Ngala. It's not that far, and elephants can certainly move those sorts of distances. They wouldn't do it necessarily in a day. I'm just going to try and get past this beastly thicket into this little clearing here. Ooh, there's a nice big herd coming back onto Djuma, which is very exciting indeed, because we've had 2 elephant-free days. Might be one of those jasminium creepers. And then up in front as well, Owen, there's a big bull. This elephant is hiding behind a tiny tree. So another large bull and his, what shall we say, his apprentice. He's only gone 1 tux. He's lost his other tux somewhere along the way, probably feeding on some bark that would have snapped off. There's now an elephant, and Owen is not going to be able to show it to you because it's too far, sort of at the wrong angle, but it's about 3 meters behind the vehicle, which is lovely. Now the bull is assessing us. He's deciding if we're a threat or not. I can smell him, which means he may well be in must. So we'll just need to be a little bit wary. Between his back legs, there's the must bull. Owen, right next to you to the left, there's the must bull. This guy we've seen, this is the broke through the bush. The other big bull in front of us moved away. So this is the same group that we saw about 3 kilometers to the south of here 2 mornings ago. And this is the elephant that's in must. You'll see the moisture between his back legs. He's dribbling and he smells. I don't find it an unpleasant smell, but it's a very strong, sweet, kind of sickly leather smell. Now this chap you wouldn't tangle with. If he got upset with you, he would not be trifled with. I know we have to look through the antenna here, but we don't want to start the engine and give him a fright and cause his displeasure. There we are. He's appreciably, like I said the other day, he's 20% larger than I think any of the other elephants we've seen today. He's bigger than the first bull that was feeding on the marula fruit by about 10%. He just looks a little unfortunate with that floppy ear of his. He's also only got one tusk. So I smelt him before I saw him. Hello, you're in the United Kingdom. Gosh, you're up early. I suppose it's not that early at the moment. Elephant herds don't have a... Well, they do have a leader, but it's a female lead called a matriarch. So the bulls just come and go to the herd. So this big fellow here won't be with this herd all the time. A lot of the time he'll be on his own. But because he's in what we call must, that means he wants to become a dad again. He's going to hang around with the herd and try and find himself a wife for a little while. It'll be a temporary wife, though, not a permanent one. I tell you, it is amazing to me how small some elephants become when you see a big chap like we're looking at there. Oh, and if you want to swing back around towards this other one-tusked bull over here, I'm just going to have to do a bit of maneuvering to get around to look. I mean, he now looks... He's certainly not small. And if we saw him on his own, we'd think he was huge. But in comparison, yeah, he's about 20% smaller than the big guy, who we shall henceforth call a floppy ear. Startlingly original name. Floppy ear, one tusk. So the whole atmosphere here is being overpowered by the smell of that big bull. It's masking even the powerful scent of the Land Rover. Alrighty, I'm not sure if Nicky has started a fire for you or if he's still going to start a fire.
So I haven't started a fire yet, and as we said, it's going to be for this afternoon, but what I really wanted to start doing is, so whenever we want to make fire, we have to think about it proactively. It's like, okay, we can't just go and then try and start a fire. We need to start collecting everything we need. Now, earlier on, he saw those elephants. Now, another thing that we can use in order to put the coal in, once we get a coal, is something like elephant dung, and then we can form it like a little nest and blow into that, and hopefully that can light up. Other than elephant dung, we can use dry grass. But at the moment, after the dew this morning, a lot of the grass is still wet. But right over here, we have some elephant dung. Now, there's quite a bit of grass in here. There's some little sticks as well. And if we can take this, I'll spread it out probably where my feet would be on the vehicle. Hopefully those who are cleaning the vehicle, probably myself later on. We'll just spread it out so it can start warming so that we can use it for this afternoon. Now, we are moving in quite an open area on this side, and we are going to be looking out for cheetah, because it's just such a beautiful morning. Oh, there's actually a giraffe. Probably also came to take a lesson of how to make fire. It's quite a beautiful male that's moving off. I don't think we're going to get a good view of him because the area that he is moving off into is quite a dense area. For now, we are moving into more an open section, and it is early part of the morning. I'm just hoping that we haven't seen a cheetah in quite a while, that there might be some cheetah in these open areas. Sometimes we'll go up to a termite mound, use it as a slight vantage point, but you'll see as we're driving on, it is quite dense here behind us, and as we go on, it starts opening up into these big open sections of grassland, and hopefully we can look for some cheetah there. Now, during my time as a ranger at andBeyond Private Game Reserve, I used to see quite a few cheetah, like on a regular basis, and the reason being is because sometimes, or the predator densities, or the number of predators in that area was pretty low in comparison to this section of Ngala. And to be honest, I've only seen a cheetah once in Ngala before, so if we do find one this morning, I'll be super excited. You just never know what the bush is going to present, especially on a beautiful morning like this. Aaron, you were asking if it's safe to get out of the car. So before I even got out of the car, I made sure that I scanned the area to make sure there was nothing that was nearby. And because there was nothing nearby, it was safe to get out and go and have a look at that elephant dung. But just to give you an idea, according to my knowledge, there's only 2 animals in the whole wide world that will actively hunt people as food. It's a polar bear and a crocodile. But other than that, like most of the other predators, particularly also here at andBeyond Ngala, they don't people as food, so we're not part of their food, and so because of that, they'll move away. Seen an elephant, maybe about, remember they eat grass. The elephant, of course, will eat fruits and leaves. I would not get out of a vehicle because, you know, like maybe there's a young one around. And
Sorry about that. We don't quite know what happened to Nicky. I imagine he lost his signal, but he will get it back. We are just admiring this herd of Impala. Mixed herd. We've got ewes, rams, youngsters, lambs, young boys, and we've actually got a few Inyalas in there as well who are obviously confused about their identity. Why am I looking at Impala? Because sometimes they can actually tell you a lot about what is going on around you. You just have to listen and watch. Now, if there's a lion or a leopard in the vicinity, what they'll do is they'll alarm call. So they'll stop and they'll call out, they'll make a vocalization that tells everyone, danger, danger, danger. But if it's wild dogs chasing after Impala, they make no sound at all, they run. So if you all of a sudden see a herd of Impala flee at top speeds, you know most likely there's dogs in the area. There's no time to stand your ground and alarm call for dogs. But there is when it comes to leopards and lions. Why? Because they are ambush predators. Leopards and lions hunt completely differently from dogs. And therefore, as soon as a leopard or a lion has been spotted, has been called out, and their position and their location is sort of, well, been announced to the entire herd, is game over. They won't hunt. They'll give up and walk away. Whereas dogs, they hunt by coursing. Last night, right in front of us, we just didn't get a view of it. The dogs took down an Impala. It's fast, it's quick. They run together. They come out of nowhere. They surprise the Impala, and it's a very, very quick death. But this herd seemed fairly relaxed, I think. No one looks anxious or nervous. No one is alarm calling. Okay, I have checked half the reserve, so I'm going to check the few remaining roads that I haven't, and hopefully we'll be back in time for Ribbon. It's now nice and warm, and I just want to check on Ribbon one more time. It's not just Ribbon and the cubs I want to see, of course that's number one, but interactions with other hyenas is going to be really important. I'm a little bit curious as to why the Impala are at this side of the reserve. They shift, so say a leopard has walked here, they will move in the opposite direction, and sometimes early in the morning, that can actually be a telltale time let's just see if we can see anything in the western side of the reserve, and then hyena den it is. Go, Darby, our last loop of today, and we have done a lot of loops. Hyena tracks are just everywhere. It's unbelievable, the volume of hyena tracks. They literally move vast distances across the night, and normally they're following their nose, so sometimes it's best to pay attention to these tracks, not follow them, but definitely pay attention. So as I put my nose to the ground, we are going to send you back across to Mr. Hendry.
I have found a beautiful smelling plant called hemizigia, which I haven't seen this year, and I can only assume that it's just suddenly decided that now the conditions are good for it to come out. So I shall stop on the top of this hill, and then I shall show it to you, and you shall be sore amazed. Here is the plant. And it looks like a plectranthus, or perhaps even a relative of the Ocimum species, but it is called hemizigia, and what it smells like is, if you're far away from it and you just touch it, it smells like chocolate, but when you get a bit closer, it has a unique smell that is quite difficult to describe. It's sweet, sort of like a sweet, fragrant smell, but it's not like a herb you'd ever want to put in your food. But it is a herb that you'd have around the house to give it a nice smell, if you know what I mean. Like you'd never want potpourri tasting beef stroganoff. It just smells, I suppose, like this time of the year out here. Like a sweet chocolatey herb. Yeah, that's the best I can do. A sweet chocolatey herb. This is a good idea, Louise, if I had one. Louise suggesting that I should put it in my underwear drawer. Thank you, Louise. If I had an underwear drawer, I would certainly put this in it. I don't have any drawers at all. It's not to say that I don't have any underwear. It's in a shelf. That's definitely enough information on that. We're heading down towards the first waterhole we started at, in the vain hope that the wild dogs may have come down there and settled. Okay, Nicky is now with the Vulture. I don't know, again, what happened with his fire, if he started it or not, but I'm sure you guys know that.
Here we go. Link. Welcome back, everyone. We just found this vulture as we were driving past up in this dead tree, and you'll see like how it's just opening up those wings just to warm up with the sun. It is warming up quite a bit, but very interesting colors on this vulture. If you have a look, you'll notice it's pretty like dark brown in color with a lot of streaking on the chest, a bit of white around the head, and then dark around the bill. It's a white-backed vulture, but it's just a youngster, so we refer to them as juveniles. And as they tend to get older, so normally from 6 years onwards, they'll start getting more of a white, creamy color. But still a youngster and just enjoying that early morning sun. Now, often with those lines that we were earlier, if you see a lot of the vultures around a tree, especially early in the morning when you drive up, you know that that's where they could have spent time near a kill, if there was any kill around. But for this vulture is just enjoying the sun. He's not going to be doing too much. Maybe later on, as it warms up, he might just head off to see if there's any potential meal for him. For now, I'm thinking maybe we'll start heading back to those lines to see if they're still laying around, if they've moved, and then we'll take it from there. But just nice seeing this white-backed vulture. Martha, you were asking a very interesting question if we do find any of the white-necked ravens here. Now, I haven't seen one yet, but I do know that there's a possibility of seeing them in the area. I just quickly wanted to go across to the bird page just to show everyone more or less how a white-necked raven would look like. So, right over here, just to show everyone more or less how it looks like. So I haven't seen any on Ngala as of yet, but they do occur more towards the western side of where we are. So from where that vulture is, maybe we can use the camera just to zoom in the western side. You'll notice there's a big mountain range in the distance. And so often with these white-necked ravens, they see near that mountain range. It's referred to as the Drakensberg mountain range of South Africa. Jordan, age 6, you've asked a very interesting question. What is the wingspan of a vulture? Now, so with some of the vultures, it differs quite a bit. So I want to try and make use of my book in order to help us out here, and because I don't know all the wingspans off by heart. But just to give you an idea, I mean, with some of the bigger vultures, like the Leopard face vulture, has a wingspan of nearly 3 meters, or just over 3 meters. With this one here, I reckon if he probably, just looking at his size, if he had to spread his wings, it would probably be like close to 2 meters with this particular vulture. I would say probably what are the most endangered species, or according to my knowledge, would probably be one that is referred to as the Cape vulture. Now, the Cape vulture looks very similar to this white-backed vulture, but I just wanted to, if we can just show a picture, it's very similar looking, and in some areas it is even locally extinct. Probably be this one right over here. So you see, like the white-backed vulture, very similar looking, but the main characteristic, of course, here with this Cape vulture, it has a lot of lighter primary feathers, and secondary feathers. And with the white-back, you'll notice there's quite a prominent white patch here, and they're also slightly darker in color than that of the Cape vulture. But that's, whenever they're flying, this is quite an interesting or good feature to use out on drive. For now, I don't think this vulture is going to be doing too much. He is enjoying the sun. I said we are going to try and look out for cheetah, but it is warming up quite a bit now. So maybe for now, let's carry on, go have a look at those lions again, see what they might be up to. And then as we go along, we're still going to look out for cheetah in these open areas. So while we are going to go try and see if we can find some cheetah and possibly go back to the lions, let's see if Lauren has any updates for us on any tracks and if she's found anything yet.
I have my first track in so long, fresh. Now Davi's going to probably go along the tracks and show you what's happening here. There is leopard tracks mixed in with hyena. For every leopard track, there's a hyena track right behind it. They're almost similar, but not. Leopard, hyena, leopard, hyena, leopard, hyena. And I'm very aware that we are running out of time, so I'm not going to jump out and analyze these tracks too much. I think it's the best decision to actually follow them. Now, I'm sure Trishala drove this road yesterday. Almost sure of it. And I think these are fresh, and it's very common to see hyenas following leopards, and that's exactly what I was mentioning in the last segment. It's sometimes worth paying attention to hyena tracks, not actively following them, no, but paying attention to them, yes. Now I don't have these tracks anymore, so what that tells you is that they've either crossed into a block or the animal's on the other side of the road. Now I'm going to need your help here, Davy. You don't see them, which means the animal has crossed off. So I think at this stage, so late in the game, we should just drive. We can't go boondabashing off into the thicket. A leopard has walked along here recently and a hyena followed. Hyenas follow their nose. They don't think about where they're going, they follow their nose and they follow the scent of a leopard. Why? Well, they're hoping for a free meal. Hyenas absolutely do hunt, don't get me wrong, but if there's a chance of a free meal, they will take it. As would most of us. Humans included. This is the first tracks of any sign of leopard I have picked up on in a long time, which is really, really good news. So I am currently on Rebecca's Road, and these tracks are definitely fresh. I've been coming down this road every single day, and I think Trishala came here yesterday. Yeah, but picked them up again, so I lost them there, and what that means is the leopard or the individual has gone like this, maybe scent marking. Female leopard, but judging by the size of the tracks. Davy, I hope you've got your leopard spotting eyes on. He has. Now it's getting very hot now. I'm actually going to have to take my jumper off, and what that also means is that it's going to be hot for the animals as well. Any mobile animal could potentially be going quite flat sooner or later. Okay, I'm going to continue going down this road for now, as I am well aware that we're on the last leg of the safari. Trust this to be the last road I check. Have you got them on your side, Davy? No, I've got them again. I can see them. It is unbelievable. For every leopard track, there's a hyena right behind it. just pull over. Natalie, are you still there? I'm just worried we've lost comms. She's still there. And I've still got the tracks. Actually, yeah, it's definitely female. What females would use Rebecca's road? Shadulu, always, I have found on Rebecca's. Always found Shadulu on Rebecca's, which has probably been lucky. She would definitely use this road. I think Klalamba would use this road. Tandy, very possibly. I think that's our options. Kim, you're asking what does a game ranger do on a daily basis? I can tell you what we do on a daily basis. Maybe Nikki can give his sort of perception on what they do with guests at his side at andBeyond and Ngala. But what we do at WildEarth is, of course, take game drives. And it's not all about just jumping on the vehicle and talking and eating peanut butter and banana whenever you can. No, it's also, you've got a lot to deal with the vehicles. So there's lots of vehicle maintenance, vehicle prep, getting ready for the drive, and checking. We've got a pre-checklist, if you like, to get through before we're even allowed to leave camp. That's a vehicle check. We check all the fluids under the bonnet. We also check the tires. We check we've got all the tire changing equipment on board. And then, of course, we check we've got our banana and peanut butter. And once we're all good to go, then we'll start our sort of broadcasting checks. So we do the checks with the directors that our audio is okay. Our delay tests, we do a delay test. We make sure that our sync is okay. Lots of different things. And then, of course, we're ready to roll out. And on a normal sort of day-to-day basis, and I'm not talking about now we're in a very unique situation all around the world, and we are actually in lockdown here. This is where we got locked down, and it's very quiet, but normally you communicate with all the other vehicles on the game drive radio. I have a radio, and we talk to everyone else to get updates. Did you see... Davi's got the tracks. Did you see tracks? Where did you see tracks? Did you find? What did you find in the morning? Did you hear anything? So we sort of catch up with all the other vehicles, and then we go live with all of you. And sometimes we have very entertaining and crazy drives, and sometimes we have quiet drives. But as for a game ranger that's with guests, I think we should maybe ask Nikki that one, as he works with guests on a daily basis, I believe. Yep, I've still got the tracks here as well, Davi. So this Leopard has travelled all the way down Rebecca's. And then, of course, after drive, we've got the post-drive checks. Charging batteries, putting radios on to charge, making sure cameramen collect their memory cards, cleaning up the car before we actually go and have some dinner. Okay, I'm going to get out up here and just have a little look to see if we can find out where this leopardess has went. And as I do that, we are going to send you across to James with a bird.
Yes, there is a bird. This particular bird is a bird that eats other birds. It is an African hawk eagle. And it is enjoying the sun after a chilly-ish morning. I wouldn't say cold, but chilly-ish morning. It's really a fairly unmistakable bird because it is uniquely coloured for a bird that size, and that blotching on the chest very obvious. So if you're just learning how to bird, that's a good one to get. The African hawk eagle has a nest quite close by here. There's nothing on the nest, but they tend to just congregate or concentrate, in this particular area. Now, Owen, rather than the Impala, which we were going to look at, there's quite a lot of bird activity up there in that knobthorn tree. There is at least one wagsbilo, the blue wagsbilo. And I'm just going to look around with my powerful binoculars to see if I can see any other kind of seed-eating bird like a, green-winged pytilia. Yes, John D., I do think that dinosaurs are, at least that birds are really descended from dinosaurs. Very, very distantly in the past, hundreds of millions of years. We got the waxbill. But eventually, if you go far enough back, yes. Now, that's a very sophisticated question for a 4-year-old. You're also like a 1-year-old who asked a question yesterday. You're going to have a PhD by the time you're 12, I think. Yes, there are about 3 or 4 wagsbilos that I can see in that tree. No pytilias as yet. It's got a really soporific feel this morning now as the heat starts to build. This is why April is so glorious at this time of the year in the Lowveld, because it's not going to get to that blinding heat of the summer when all you want to do is lie in a puddle and not move. Yeah, but it'll get hot enough to have a swim and just enjoy the deep blue of the sky overhead and really look forward to going out again this afternoon. Uzziah, African hawk eagles, I'm sure they would eat rodents. I mean, I'll check up for you if there are any records of them eating rodents. But their main diet is other birds, like guinea fowl and francolins. Those are the things that they go for most of the time. Let me check for you. So I'll give you a list of all the things that they've been recorded eating. Are you ready? It's quite a long list. Eats mainly birds, 70 to 74%. So 3/4 of what it eats is birds. Sometimes mammals. So that would be little rodents and things. Occasionally reptiles and insects. Francolins and guinea fowl comprise 69% of bird prey. So, almost just over 2/3 of what it eats are francolins and guinea fowls. They'll also eat hornbills, turricos, doves, chagras, plovers, chickens, and occasionally owls. Also raids red-billed quelea colonies and heronries, so the nesting colonies of queleas and herons. In northeast South Africa, so that'll be in this region, mammalian prey, mainly bush squirrels, so that's a tree squirrel. And then sometimes hares, hyrax, rodents, mongoose, fruit bats, bush babies, one vervet monkey, spring hare, klipspringer, and occasionally lambs of sheep, I think they mean. Reptiles, usually less than 10% of the prey. And you include the plated lizards, snakes, and monitor lizards. Occasionally, scavengers, carrion. So that's all the things that the researchers have seen it eating. It's got quite an amusing Latin name. Aquilus, or Aquila spilogaster. Aquila spilogaster. I think that's quite an amusing word, spilogaster. I don't know why it's funny. It just sounds funny. It certainly does. Good. That was a small birding interlude. There he goes, possibly hunting. Let us continue. We're going to go down the center of the reserve, simply because no one's gone down the center of the reserve this morning. I'm so pleased that all those elephants have come back onto Djuma. I hope they hang around. because the afternoon after a hot midday, when there are elephants around, can be great at the waterholes. I'm also rather hoping that Ribbon's going to do some more showing of her baby, like she did yesterday evening. Right, Nicky is on the hunt for something else at Ngala, so let's go over to him.
So how interesting was that African hawk eagle? I hope everyone enjoyed it. It's one of my, I would say, favorite birds as well. So we've checked quite a few open areas. We didn't see any signs of cheetah as of yet, but now we are heading back to the lions to see if these lions possibly would have moved, or are they still sleeping in the road? So let's head across. We're not too far, maybe another like 3 or 4 minutes drive, and then we'll see if they are on the road or if they start moving. Remember that waterhole wasn't too far away from where they were, so the chances are they could, with it warming up, start moving to that waterhole. So one of our viewers asked Lauren earlier, what is her typical day, especially when she has guests? Like, what would she do in between drives and all of that? So with me here at andBeyond in Ngala, I have a little routine. So early on in the morning when I wake up, I do enjoy quite a nice cup of coffee. Normally I'll have like 2 cups of coffee just to wake up before I get to the guests, meet the guests. And then after the game drive, well, it all really depends. I mean, if we were looking for any particular animal and we didn't find it necessary on game drive, we would then go out and start tracking that animal and try and see if we can get it for the afternoon's drive. Sometimes it might be so warm that we won't go out, and then typically with some of the rangers we'll go and exercise. There's a beautiful airstrip up close to one of the lodges, and we'll go do maybe a run or 2. But quite a lot of exercising, bit of resting, reading up on a few things that we might not have been certain of, and then game drive again. I think for me, the highlight normally is just that section just before game drive again, like getting ready, another cup of coffee just before the afternoon game drive. But if we don't take out any guests, oh, here's the lions again. All of them still in the same area. I'll finish this question now. You can see a few of them have moved off a little bit more closer to the shade. You can even see this one off the left. Oh, they're just getting up. Probably going to move from that sunny part either into the bush or just next to the other one in the road. There we go. So just to finish off that question, I mean, like, a typical day would probably be getting back, a bit of exercise, then of course going for lunch. Being a male, I do enjoy a nice good meal. Like these lions, I'm very opportunistic. I never know when my next meal is going to be. And then, yeah, straight after that, might rest up a bit, like for an hour or 2, maybe read something. I also love like building little things with my hands. So then maybe sometimes I'll work on an ash bag, which is like the sock where you can put ash in it just to check the wind, or maybe fix something in my room, clean my room. There's just basically me time for that little while before we go out with guests again. You can just see, like, in the middle of this whole pride, at the back, is one of the young white lions laying towards us. Chili, Bobby, you were asking a very good question of what will happen with the cubs, especially if the mothers need to go out and hunt. Now, you can imagine if they don't have too much experience, how easily they can spoil a hunt. And I've seen it so many times, especially with the youngsters, because whenever the mom starts stalking something and the youngsters see it, they think that they're going to have the opportunity, they're going to show mom how to do it. And then they often like surprise, or maybe they run into the open and then they give away their position. So the other animals tend to run away. But what you will often find is, especially with this pride, when they do move and it looks like they might hunt, they'll leave the youngsters behind and then go and hunt and then come back. And when they're successful, normally with the noises they make, or maybe the mom might give this low contact call like, and that will then call the youngsters to come and join up again. But the mom sometimes just have to leave them, because with all the excitement, they can spoil a hunt for them. Just wanted to point out just wanted to see what this one is doing. Oh, just changing position, laying down. So for now, we're still going to be with them for the next 10 or 15 minutes to see if they might move off. But let's head across to Lauren as she's making her way to the hyena den.
I am at a hyena den with a glorious view of Ribbon. And Davy just asked Ribbon a question. He said, Ribbon, what on earth did you eat? Was it an elephant? And she popped her head up, gave him the side eye, and is now snoozing again. That is a very fat, large hyena, everyone. Ribbon, what did you eat? Davy thinks it was an elephant. It could also be our leftovers from last night. Trishala and Natalie cooked us a braai, or bride us a braai. What's the correct term, Davy?
Yeah, that works.
Bride us a braai.
Just bride for us.
Bride for us. Okay. For those of you who are not sure what that means, it's essentially a barbecue. But South Africans like to have their own term for it, and they call it a braai. They bride us a braai. So potentially in that belly of Ribbons there could be leftover braai. You never know, it also could be an elephant. I'm only joking, everyone. Ribbon would not eat an elephant. She would try if it was available, but Ribbon herself would not be able to take down an elephant. I'm just teasing her because of her excessively large belly. Now this would be a great position if the cubs were to come out, but I actually firmly believe in the handful of times that we've all been here, Trishala, James and myself, I actually think she's been suckling sometimes, but unfortunately the way she positions herself right in that hole, I really don't think that we see it. But I think occasionally little cubs will be suckling, and her nipples are positioned quite sort of towards the rear end of the body, and I think she just keeps that rear section tucked into the hole. They suckle, sleep, and suckle and sleep. Oh, Davy's saying we can see the nipple. There you go. That's the nipple. Tom, we've not seen the cubs this far out. So the sort of design of this termite mound, the entrance hole where the cubs are stashed in, is actually very deep. So depending on where we position... Oh, hello. Goodbye. And I think she keeps them stashed in, especially it's really, really hot right now. I can't even begin to tell you what the temperature is, but it's a lot hotter than when we first started the safari. So she doesn't want the cubs to come out in the sun, dehydration, risk of predators, risk of other hyenas being a bit too playful. Hyenas get very excited. They're very emotional, and they get very, very excited when they see one another. So if a little cub came out at this size and the age they are right now, they could risk being hurt in so many ways. There's lots of vegetation around with thorns and spines. So right now, and I think for the next 2 weeks, 1 or 2 weeks, they're going to be stashed quite well in the den. But as time moves on, again, it's a game of patience. It paid off for James last night. We've just got to wait. And we all love Ribbon very, very dearly. And she's very comfortable with us here. and over time the cubs will start to come out more. They're still developing. She's doing a very good job of being a mama. She's not had much luck with her past litters. Okay, Rib Robs, it's been delightful to see you. I hope you digest well. And that belly gets flatter by this afternoon. So we're going to stay a little bit longer with Rib Robs here, hoping that the cubbies come out. And while we sit in the baking hot sun, we are going to send you across to Nicky, who I'm sure is also baking with his lions.
So just notice that as we were sitting here, the one white lion actually lay down next to one of the other siblings. So you'll see just at the back, and the camera's actually focused on now, the one closest to us that you can see on the main screen, that's the little female, the white female. And just behind her is the bigger white male. And it's so nice to see the two that are quite close together. But you can also, when you notice the way that the whole pride is now angled, they've just managed to hug the shade next to the trees just off to the right. And I'm wondering, with that male now, you'll notice his ear, especially also his shoulder, there's quite a bit of sun coming onto him. And it's not going to be long before he'll probably stand up and start moving closer to the shade. Just bearing in mind how warm it is. Earlier on I mentioned, they might just head down to the water, but I think with the heat coming up, I don't think they're going to head too far away from here. They might just move. They follow the shade a bit off to the right as it starts to heat up. It's very comfortable. You'll notice that quite a few of the individuals are laying with their feet up into the air. Francesca, you were asking if we do any conservation work or any research work. So basically what we do as a group of rangers is we try and record all the areas that we do see the lions, because mainly we are the ones that spend most of the time looking for them and most of the time with them. And so we have a program that we then plot in all the areas that we do see the lions. And so by doing so, it enables us to understand their movement, of why they're moving to certain areas. If other males move into the area, where do this pride move off to? What happens if some of the more common species like the zebras and the wildebeest start moving off? Would the lions follow them? So as rangers, we do actively take part in doing a lot of research. It might not necessarily be us that are doing the research and writing papers about it, but we do give that information to some of our other researchers that would enable them and help them to use all that information to understand their behavior and their movement a lot better. Just have a look at this one male that's laying down. You can just see that little patch of white on his chin and above, just below his nose, as the sun is hitting him. Marcel, was that a lion call? What was that? Just see the tail. Now, often with these lions, you can just imagine, they're in the road, so they're a little bit easier to see, but with the grass right next to them, you'll notice if they had to lay in, it'd be really hard to see them. So often the bit of movement, you'll see now and then one flicking their tail, and that's often a way to spot these lions, especially in a really dense area. Also looking at that white on the belly, maybe that white on the chin. It's a really nice indication of it. So it was such an amazing morning. We were so lucky to find this pride, find them in the road. They weren't doing too much, but there was now and then a chance that they might have moved and done something. But how amazing was this? Well done to Laura and James, and hopefully we'll see everyone this afternoon for another game drive.